What's up everybody, Venom here with a quick guide on Techtonica. Let's get right into it. Now I know this game isn't blowing up per se, but there was one aspect of it that really confused me and a couple of my friends when we first started playing, so I wanted to do a quick guide on not only the core composer, but the research cores that you're going to need to upgrade your tech tree inside of Techtonica. In this guide, we will discuss the core composer, what it does, and how research cores actually work in Techtonica. Now, the tech tree in this game is quite expansive, so I'm not going to cover very much of the tech tree itself, but just basically how to upgrade it using these cores and how to streamline your core making process as well as your core utilization process by using the core composer. Research cores are explained to you very early on in the game using a tutorial, but there are a few things that are left out that I think are extremely important to know when utilizing these research cores. You will start out with the purple research cores. There are other colors that get implemented later on, so I'm trying to be specific with the color. It is purple research cores that you are given after you unlock the basic science tier, and you will have to upgrade these tiers by using a certain amount of research cores per tier that you are attempting to unlock. Research cores are a crafted item, so you will need to utilize resources that you collect in order to craft these research cores, and once you have them, they are going to be used in a stacking or a placing manner, however you so choose to do it, in order to unlock other areas of your tech tree. And that sounds very confusing. Yes, so let's give a small example. In the beginning of the game, you will be tasked to create a mole machine, and it's basically a very high-powered drill that will terraform the world around you in order to create tunnels to new areas, flatten ground. It can be upgraded later on, but right now we're going to discuss the base mole machine that you will create using research cores in the beginning of the game. To utilize research cores, you need to place them on the ground after crafting them. I liked to stack mine. It made them look cleaner and take up less real estate, but you have to place them down, and then that will add to a little counter, and this counter can be seen at the bottom of your tech tree. It will show you how many cores you have available for further research. One of the biggest things to note about these research cores that I was unaware of for quite some time while playing this game was that they can only be used once. So even though they're placed down, they don't just continue to stack upon each other in order to reach the higher tiers. If something takes, say, 10 research cores, and you research it with those 10 cores, those cores are attached to whatever you use them to research. So you would need, let's say, 20 cores to research another machine. You will have to place 20 more cores. So that means you would need a 30 core total in order to reach the next research item that you are trying to use these cores towards. I hope that made sense, but it's just very confusing. Basically, once a research core has been used to research an item in the tech tree, you will need to build upon that amount in order to reach the next tier. Again, if something costs 10 cores and you use those 10 cores to research, let's say, the mole machine, then in order to get the mole machine speed 2, which let's just say that takes 20 cores, you would need to place 20 more cores for a total of 30 cores placed in order to unlock the mole speed 2 machine in your tech tree. That means you're going to need a lot of cores. When I'm talking about a lot of cores, I am talking monumental amount of cores. They are going to stack upon each other over and over and over again, and it's going to take up a lot of real estate. And this is where the core composer becomes a vital part of your research abilities in Techtonica. The core composer takes a power floor, which you'll unlock in the basic tiers of your tech tree, so don't worry too much about that. And those power floors are powered by crank generators, which you have to crank up. That's kind of what it means by crank generator. You get a quest to place the power floors and to place the crank generators and to place the core composer. Now you do have to do a little work. You have to put in some research time with other research cores, so be prepared to place a metric amount of research cores on the ground to get to the point of being able to build the core composer. But once you do, it becomes a lot easier to maintain a very large amount of cores while taking up less real estate than you probably would initially. Once you have your power floors down and your crank generators as well as your core composer placed, you will notice that there are a massive amount of ports on every side of your core composer. So what do those ports do? You will have to use an inserter in order to get the research cores into the core composer, which will begin stacking them in a very nice square pattern. And it will keep stacking and stacking and stacking as long as you keep supplying the inserter with these research cores. The easiest way to streamline this entire process and build up an insane amount of cores is to make a machine that assembles the cores, put them on a conveyor belt using another inserter from that machine that assembles the cores, and feeds it into the second inserter, which will insert it into the core composer. What confuses a lot of people is that you cannot just put these cores inside of the core composer. They have to be fed by an inserter, so on a conveyor belt, and then fed into the machine with an inserter. So that is something that confused a lot of people. You cannot just put them inside of the core composer. They do have to be placed inside of the composer via an inserter. These research cores will begin stacking on top of each other, like I said, in a very nice pattern, and it will keep climbing and climbing and climbing until it reaches the roof of your terrain. And once it does, it will start spreading wide and stacking wide rather than continuing down. It will start to spread all along the ceiling of your terrain. And it's gonna look ugly. There's a lot of them. And it's going to make a massive amount as long as you keep supplying your assembler. It's going to keep assembling them, putting them into the core composer and stacking them. But you will build up a very large amount of these research cores and be able to utilize them to research amazing things on the tech tree. So it does streamline the process. You do have to continue to feed the assembler machine with the resources needed, whether that's conveyor belts, whether you set up a huge system to feed it the materials that it needs to create these research cores. But either way, it's going to just stack extremely high, and you're going to have a very unsightly tower of research cores. But I don't think that matters too much other than for the eyesore factor. But that's the easiest way to stack up a massive amount of these without having to craft them yourself, place them yourself, and stack them to the ceiling on your own. And that's gonna do it for this guide. Yes, it's quite confusing, and I hope that I explained it in the best way possible to understand how the research cores work, how they can only be used for one tech tree research item, and how you will need to build a stack and a plethora of them in order to continue research on the tech tree, and how the core composer can streamline that process as long as it's fed the materials to create these research cores, place them into the core composer via an inserter, and stack them high as can be so that you can research as much as possible inside of your tech tree. As always, if you like the video, then like the video. And if you like my content in general, then please subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!